Welcome to the TCU Innovates podcast.
For over 150 years, Texas Christian University has been at the forefront of innovation, and we're just getting started.
I'm TCU Chancellor Victor Bashini.
And I'm TCU President Daniel Pullin.
We are your hosts of TCU Innovates.
We highlight the latest stories of innovation and thought leadership across our community.
Dream big, be bold,
and lead on, Horned Frogs. Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning in to this edition of TCU Innovates. This is TCU President Daniel Pullin, and today we have a very special guest, Dr. Craig Allen. He is the Executive Director for our Housing and Fraternity Sorority Life in the Division of Student Affairs. And today we are going to talk about student housing at TCU, which is just one of our strongest assets and draws accolades year after year and amazing feedback from our students, but also specifically about Dr. Allen's research on the student housing experience at TCU and across higher ed in general. So let's just get started. Dr. Allen, tell us a little bit about your pathway to TCU. What brought you here? How did you become a Horned Frog?
I was very fortunate to become a Horned Frog when a good friend of mine who I'd actually done my master's work with was working at Texas A&M, and he and I had been in touch, and he said, did you know there's an opportunity for housing at Texas Christian University? I didn't know a lot about TCU then. I was working at Seton Hall as the Director of Housing and Residence Life. And my wife and I had, around that time, been having conversation about whether or not we wanted to stay in New Jersey or perhaps look for a new opportunity. And with two young kids, we thought it was a good time to look to move. I came out for a visit. And after being offered an interview and had a wonderful visit and could tell right away that there was just special things happening and about to be happening at TCU.
Yeah, it really is the case. And then and now, and as we look ahead on the back of an all-new strategic plan, which contemplates prudent student-centered growth and the experience and really driving even more positive outcomes. And student housing plays a large role, certainly at the undergraduate level, increasingly at the graduate student level. So let's educate our listeners with just a discussion of some of the basics. How many students live on campus at TCU, and how has housing grown and evolved during your time as a Horned Frog?
That's a great place to start. And indeed, housing has been very much growing. When I got here in 2005, we were just a little bit under 3,000 students who lived on campus. And in the next 5 or 10 years, we grew pretty quickly. We hit 4,000 students by 2012 and 5,000 students on campus in 2021. So we're at about 5,600 this year, and we do house exclusively undergraduate students right now at TCU. I think hopefully in the future we'll have an opportunity to bring back some graduate student housing. Certainly as we grow that enrollment, there may be a need for graduate student housing, but we had very little when I got here, and because of the need for undergraduate housing, the little bit of grad housing we had in 2005, by 2008 became undergraduate student housing. So it's been a lot of growth. The Commons in the middle of campus was once a parking lot, completely transformed that part of campus. And then the Worth Hills part of campus between 2013 and 2019 with a Greek village that is really unrivaled across the country, and new residence halls there just completely transformed that part of campus, along with the King Family Commons building.
Absolutely. And, that transformation in so many ways has been attributed to the success of our students, the connectivity they feel to campus, their engagement, and not just in broader student life, but even on the academic side. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of, residence halls and how they can contribute to positive student outcomes?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of literature on the student experience in student housing and the retention numbers for students who live on campus versus those who might not live on campus. And it varies institution to institution, but there's definitely a connection between the on-campus experience. Students come to universities for their education. They come for faculty and for programs, but that student experience supports their sense of connection and belonging to each other. And TCU definitely became, I think, probably was known as a residential university many years ago. And then as it grew and didn't build housing, maybe moved away from that. But then around 2005 with the Commons and other halls, kind of returned, as I like to say, to, being a residential institution, one where first and second year students live on campus, and that sense of connection with each other, support for each other, the collegiality, the ability to work together on projects and schoolwork is really all reinforced when they live together in community, a community of scholars.
Yeah, it's a lot of universities require that first year, but we require the second year. Talk to us really what's special about that second year that really amplifies our students' experience and outcomes.
I think I love that we do a 2-year requirement. Now, in 2005, when I got here and the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs told me that we were going to move to a 2-year requirement, I learned that not everybody shared my enthusiasm for that requirement. But we implemented that in 2006 or introduced it in 2006. And then when the Commons opened, it went into effect. It really, I think, gives students an experience that they know isn't just a one and done. They know that there's going to be a significant portion of their undergraduate experience where they will be living together and learning together. And having that requirement and guarantee has been really, I believe, impactful for the students. Our facilities are excellent. That makes a big difference when they see that living on campus is not just fun and good for them academically, but they live in great facilities and have great resources around them.
And it's not, certainly we see it and we feel it every day as we circulate around campus. And, I can't tell you how many students have showed appreciation and, have shared, some of their fondest memories of their time here at TCU as a result of activities or a relationship or, a transformative conversation that might have occurred, as part of their campus housing experiences. We know that, but we're no longer the best kept secret in student housing. In fact, for almost an entire decade, the Princeton Review continues to rank TCU in the top 10 in their annual list of best dorms. What does it mean to be a top 10 best dorm? What goes into it? How are those lofty rankings achieved year after year?
Well, that is a good question, and something that when it first happened, honestly, I remember somebody pointing it out to me the first time. I believe it was around 2012 or 13, and we were really excited because we didn't know that was a thing, really. And we got this ranking, and at first I thought a lot of it had to do with our buildings, and we do have amazing buildings. We have an incredible facilities staff on campus, and we're very fortunate to have a team of people that understand that where students live is important, and they make it a priority to make sure things are in great condition. We have, again, great resident assistants, hall directors. When Dr. Cavins-Tull got here, we made it a priority to recruit nationally and to recruit people with a master's degree and some experience in residence life to come work in our buildings. And that makes a difference when you have talented people. The programs that we provide, we've really made a focus on. We want this to be their home, away from home. And so it's the fun and connecting type of programs and activities that we do routinely that help students feel that sense of home and comfort where they live. And then I think the biggest thing that we've done is we've transitioned from what would be called in our field a wellness type model, where we focused on programs and activities and a wellness wheel approach, to something called our knowing, connecting, and empowering model. And this model is built on the idea that we can intentionally help students form relationships with each other and then nurture those relationships and those connections across campus. And that when students live in an environment where people know each other and care about each other, and they form these mutually beneficial relationships, or as they call them, just friendships, the more they have that, the more their sense of belonging for their building and for campus. And so this model that we've built is both based on student development, human development, what we know about human needs for belonging and caring, and also built based on something called Community Renewal International in Shreveport, Louisiana, where we went and learned about this community model and then brought it back to our campus and kind of adjusted it to meet the needs of college students. And so doing all that together has really set us apart, I believe, from other institutions, and it's kept us ranked highly in the Princeton Review.
Yeah. And, and the proof is in the pudding. I mean, it's starting off with, the top 10 dorms, and it's driving record retention rates from first year to second year, record graduation rates, other recognitions like, best Greek life, happiest students, best student quality of life, and on and on and on. And in so many different dimensions, it's driving the reputation of the broader institution.
It can be transformational. And I think what's great about it, I believe, for TCU and for our field of student housing, is the idea that student housing is expensive and universities have to make a choice to invest in it or not. And what we've learned is that we can provide as our value proposition, so to speak, to the institution, that we create an experience beyond just a place to live and a place to sleep, because students can find that anywhere.
Yeah, I think the implementation of the new model is innovative. It's very TCU, and leaning into that KCE, knowing, connecting, and empowering models, making a difference, and there's evidence behind that. In addition to your administrative leadership role, you're a PhD. You've conducted a lot of research on this topic. Walk us through that process. The process of inquiry, the analysis, the insights, and how do we come to this conclusion?
Well, we had this model and using it for a while, and we participated in something called educational benchmarking, which has changed its name to now Sky Factor. And it's a national benchmarking that universities' housing programs use to see how do we compare to others in student satisfaction. And in 2014, a representative from that company contacted me and said, "Hey, what are you all doing related to peer interactions in your buildings?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. We do a lot of things." And I said, "Why?" And they'd been tracking national data, and the national data showed that students increasingly were less satisfied with their peer interactions. But at TCU, we were an outlier. We were increasing our satisfaction among students. And so I talked to them about our model. The same time I did that, I was being pushed by my vice chancellor and friends and colleagues that I should go back to school and finish my doctorate. As part of my dissertation process and my study, I decided to do a qualitative study of our model and see if I could learn more about how students would explain their experience and how they would share what their experience was at TCU. And a lot of work. And then in doing the dissertation, I interviewed 15 students, primarily first year, but a couple sophomores, many different residence halls, talked to them about their experience and learned a number of things. One of them, roommates are very important. How we help students get along with and learn to live with a roommate, very important. I learned that, we always want RAs to be close friends, so to speak, with their residents. But what I learned was students didn't necessarily need their RA to be their friend, but it really mattered to them if they thought their RA cared and if they saw their RA and their RA had a presence. And so the importance of presence and caring, which are key components of our model, were definitely important to students. I also learned that the programs that we do, a lot of institutions will focus on, a program has to have some learning outcome and educational connection. And what we've done is said, well, our purpose is connection to each other and relationships and friendships. So our programs are mostly social in nature and a lot of fun for students. And we put them in places where they can't help but see them. Right in the residence halls when they walk in, there's something happening often. And what students told me as I interviewed them was that even if they didn't know about a program or even if they didn't plan to attend something, when they walked in and saw their friends there, they were drawn to those activities. And that just continued to reinforce that the residence hall was a place that nurtured relationships and caring. And then finally, my findings, I think, while they can't be generalized, validated for me that the components of our model really were working, that intentional efforts to build friendships and relationships among students were working,
I love the empirical approach to it. I love the analysis, the findings, and then, of course, seeing that work put into practice to bring TCU to where we are today. But we know that if we know anything about Texas Christian University, we know we never go backwards and we're always looking forward. And I've alluded to the new strategic plan, which is terribly exciting and innovative and has been kind of touched by over 10,000 Horned Frogs have provided input on it. And we feel really great about how inclusive that is. And ultimately, it's calling for student-centered growth, which will necessitate additional student housing and supporting activities. Talk to us about maybe some of the near-term expansion plans. And then as we look, 5 and 10 years down the road, how do we make sure, as we grow prudently, that we're maintaining that special sauce, that same commitment to models like KCE, that same commitment to these really enviable student experiences and outcomes?
I think you're absolutely right that as we grow, there could be a natural concern that we would outgrow a sense of connection and relationships. And I think that what the model has showed me and what we've learned is that relationships and an intentional, practical approach, an actual model for how to do it, means that it can be scaled. And so I'm very confident that as we grow and as we think about new residence halls and new communities, that we can keep scaling this program and serve more students. I believe that perhaps in the future there's a role for us to expand the model even out into the community around TCU where students live, helping them care about each other and their neighbors. And so there really is a lot of opportunity. And I think as we grow, we will have to continue to hire the right people. The director of residence life right now and the staff that she's assembled, and same with the director of fraternity and sorority life, are people who understand our model. We have to continue to train and refine and practice the work that we do carefully to make sure that we don't stray from it. But I think as long as we do that, we can continue to grow and grow responsibly.
Yeah, I think we are too. And I think, the inclusive nature of the strategic planning process, the fact that we got all the right voices around the table, that as a community, we punctuated the point that, the student experience matters. And obviously, residence halls are a big part of that. Kind of risk adjust in a positive way our ability to execute as we grow prudently. And guess what? I guess in the near term, we're going to have a chance to prove that with 2 new residence halls coming online in the very near future. Talk to us about those halls, what our students can expect.
Well, as we sit here and speak, President Pullin, we have trucks arriving with furniture going into rooms, and we will be welcoming students in January to move in. As of right now, it's 292 beds in total, but we anticipate anywhere from 100 to 130 students living there. We don't have as many students that start in the spring, but the students who do are going to have that opportunity. And we have a number of students who live on campus who are going to move over to that facility. So we can't wait to open it up and expand to the east, and with a new dining facility, another wonderful place to reinforce student relationships. And I think also a really interesting opportunity for us so close to a number of our faculty to involve the faculty in getting to know their students outside of class, which I know is something our faculty do so well. And so as we have that with the dining and the residence halls right there, we'll have those opportunities as well for the new students. Very exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations on that project. And, what I love about that project in part is that the impact and the importance of student housing isn't just the province of the students themselves or our residence advisors or administrators like you and me, but it really is recognized at the highest levels of the university, including members of our board of trustees. In fact, both of the residence halls and the dining facility are made possible in part by extremely generous gifts of 3 of our trustees. The dining hall, known as Gutierrez Hall, named in honor of Trustee Joe Gutierrez, and Faith, will really transform the experience and the way to build community across students and faculty and staff and others that break bread and build build relationships. Then, of course, the two residence halls, one named in honor of Trustee Elliott Hill and his wife Gina, and then the Walsh Hall named in honor of just a tremendously transformative family over the years in TCU history. The Walsh family under the direction of Trustee Howard Walsh III. Just really, really remarkable testament to the breadth of recognition and the enduring nature of the power of residence halls to undergird the student experience and perpetuate the success of the institution. So we couldn't appreciate the generosity and the vision of those individuals and families anymore. This is a podcast about innovation, and we're proud of the past, and we've learned from the past, and we celebrate the present, but ultimately we're in the business of gazing into the future. And so when I end this podcast, I do it in a very consistent way. I want our special guests like yourself to, talk about innovation and their dreams. Mm-hmm. And so I'll close with the final question. What is your dream for TCU housing and the student housing experience? What will it look like in 10 years, or if you want to be as daring, even 50 years ahead?
I probably won't be here in 50, but I'll start with the 10 and say that one of the things I'm excited about is that as I've finished this work in my dissertation and that I've just completed a manuscript that will be published in the Journal of College and Student University Housing this spring, and I presented on our model at a couple conferences. We've actually already had one university, major institution in the Southeast, that has fully adopted this and rolled it out in May. We have another institution here in the state of Texas that asked us to come teach them about the model. And so my dream is in the next 10 years to see this. We plan to launch a symposium for universities to come learn here at TCU about how we do what we do and take it to their institutions. So I want us to continue to be a leader in the field of student housing. And I think that in doing so, our students will benefit, because as we learn, and what we've learned over the years is that students change and some of their hopes and fears change. But the notion of creating a caring, nurturing community where they can build relationships with each other, but that the importance of the relationships will stay in the center. In 50 years, one never knows, but there was a time in our field where people wondered if residence halls and dorms were really going to be around in the future. I went to conferences and symposiums where people suggested that in 50 years, everything would be virtual and we wouldn't have a need for students to live where they studied. I think that the COVID experience taught us that that is not going to happen, certainly not at a TCU, and that in fact, students craved and desired to be together physically. And so the idea of students coming together in the same proximity and living in the same place, I believe will be here in 50 years. And their furniture might look a little different. The way they listen to music and how they do some of their schoolwork might look different. And we'll have to adapt buildings to meet those needs and those changes. But the center of it will be being with people that they care about, who they can learn with and grow with. And my dream is that will continue and that TCU will be a leader in how to do that.
Yeah, well, let's keep focusing on that center and, the importance of relationships, because yes, the world will change and we'll embrace it, whatever the tools or technologies or mechanisms are, understanding the center that is the relational human. And as long as we optimize for that, we'll make a significant difference for generations of Horned Frog students and further strengthen the sustainability and the opportunity for Texas Christian University to flourish for years ahead. And that's why we innovate. And that's why we share stories like that. So I congratulate you, your entire team. Thank you for dreaming big. Thank you for being bold. Thank you for leading on. And thank you for joining us here today. So let's thank Dr. Craig Allen for his leadership and his vision and just a tremendous contribution to campus life here at TCU. That's it, everybody. Thanks for sharing your time today. Thanks so much for listening, and go Frogs.
Go Frogs.
The TCU Innovates podcast is recorded at the KTCU studio and the Bob Schieffer College of Communications at Texas Christian University. Thank you to the KTCU team for supporting our show. Go Frogs.